I'm
got
going to do that
access
right
to
now.
yeah.
Okay. Yep. And plus, Rod, I think we should just think about how I can assist you because, I'm sure you're starting to feel how there's a lot of work and a lot of emails and a lot of stuff.
Yes, and this month has been instrumental. I really feel like I got my legs under me in the last like 3 weeks.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I've already started to build the agenda for next month. So
Yep.
this so
I can
and
continue doing something like this, which is, again, like I said, however I can assist you,
yeah,
I can do
absolutely.
that. And if
Well,
that means
and
recording and posting to YouTube, I can take that on. Or
cool.
your next co-chair can take it on. But
Well, and you had talked about meeting me next Monday.
yep, we're gonna do that.
Next one, we should just go over all of it and talk about that file stuff and everything. That
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be great.
yeah. Because
So
it gets to be a lot.
are we officially, 6:31.
Just start.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen right off the get-go here, and really get started because we're gonna have to bounce around tonight a little bit. Melissa emailed me and she can't make it till later. She's going to try to listen in, but she can't talk until later. So we may have to move up some of the presentations to get in front of the stuff she was going to just make some announcements for.
Yep.
So we'll see how well it goes. And then as soon as she can hop on, we'll let her go through those agenda items. So
Sometimes it was like that.
yeah. Well, this is it. I'll move and adapt. All right. So welcome to the SUNY Land Use Committee monthly meeting on Zoom. And we'll begin the meeting now. The first item on the agenda is if everybody here has looked through tonight's agenda and seen the agenda, if they have any updates or questions about it, and approved tonight's agenda. Does anybody see anything that they want to make some changes to?
I think you've already covered that.
Cool. We're pretty good. Okay, move on. Was there anything from last month's agenda that anybody?
Hold on, sweetheart.
All right. I hear everybody again. I was frozen for a little bit.
So was I.
Okay, good to know. And it looks like Rod also, I don't even see him back on. So I don't know if it was his computer, my computer, anybody's computer. Welcome, everybody. I see folks still joining. Thanks for joining. Hey, Luke, good to see you here. Matt Davis, I think you're joining about the SUNI property, correct?
That's correct. And Marika will also be joining.
Okay, wonderful. Hey, Rob, good to see you again. Waiting for Rod to get back on. Hey, Bill, thanks for joining. H. Floyd, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. Not that I know everybody in the neighborhood, but welcome.
Hey, this is Hunter Floyd. I actually just got an email from you guys. I'm a part of the 4155 Jason team.
Oh,
Um,
hi, yes, thank you.
and we're sorry, we're not presenting tonight, but I felt I was given the invitation. So
No, absolutely. And you know what? When we go through stuff, we want to point out what's happening to that property and why we're going to be looking at that again. So thank you for joining.
yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I've got a 8-year-old with me tonight solo. So if you really want to get my attention, maybe email me, but I'll be listening in.
Okay. We'll cover yourself and assign
Thank you.
all responsibility to you, just so you know. You know how
Love
that
it. Yeah.
goes.
If not present, assign responsibility. Yeah.
Correct.
Understood. Thanks.
And I apologize. I think Rod must be having trouble joining because he's not here yet. And I know we have a packed agenda. I think we were just getting past, approving the agenda and moving on, but I don't have the agenda in front of me to even move on without him. I'm gonna send him a note right now and see if he's, thinks he's there and he's not there. Sorry, technical difficulties, folks. All right, since he's not back on, I'm gonna start going with, I just pulled up the agenda. So let's see, we've got an opportunity right now for public comment. Is there anybody on here who wants to talk about something that's not on the agenda, that's outside, but you want us to bring it up, consider it, talk about it? Anything from the public here right now?
I'd like to talk about the homeless camp on North Jason and how it took a while, but the homeless officers moved the inhabitants out a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And Sunday, I cleaned out part of the debris in North Jason and took it to the dump on Monday. So just trying to clean it up, but there's a lot of holes in the fence, and you know, I feel sorry for the people that are homeless, but it's pretty amazing how trash they made that area
Was this
and how
in
long
your,
they took it over.
was this on your property or inside your property or outside?
It was outside the property where Jason dead ends at I-70 north of 47th. I've blocked all that off to make it so that people can't use it as a junkyard and a place to do their pit. But in the very corner, next to Michael Banks' property, there'd been a camp for a couple years.
Okay, and you
And
said
so,
the police department, was it the resource officers who helped with this?
well, all I know is I got a picture from Tony, who was doing fencing on that day, and there's a bunch of officers there, and they were moving the people out.
Okay,
And
okay,
so,
wow.
what I did is, since I didn't want to attract, people coming in and re-inhabiting the camp. I just took out all the debris and all the as much debris as I could, last Sunday. So.
Yeah, I think this might be a topic for future conversations about, what do we do? Because this is an ongoing thing. This is not a one-off. This is, and even though we're kind of, dealing with that now or addressed, it's an ongoing thing. And there was an individual who, I guess last year now, applied for a grant and used that grant to pay the homeless to pick up after their own trash. And it was good. And I think we should figure out how to get her involved to do this a little bit more often, whether it's quarterly or whatever, since she
I
was
mean,
able to make a dent, is something that we should think about.
well, that's what I was thinking about when I was cleaning it up. It would be nice if we had the resources to pay homeless people to pick up those camps.
All right.
So, and but
I
just a thought.
I met her recently, and I know I can get in touch with her through Dottie, who she worked with, and we'll try to figure out how to invite her to this, how to figure out how to get her to continue supporting her, because this is something she's been doing. So I think it's a good idea to
Have
find
another
people
homeless
that are working.
area to the south of our property where they've just trashed it. I mean, you want to believe they have a chair there and huge piles of trash, and it's just north of Mile High Comics, but
Yep.
just
All right,
something we're
so-
working on.
Yep. No, this
Have a
is
good one.
good. Let's
Yep,
figure
no
out how
problem.
to work together and
Yep.
and support people who can address this, who have been addressing this. Anyone else with public comment outside of the agenda? I don't know. There's somebody, can folks mute?
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing.
All right. Hey, Rod, thanks.
Yeah, no, sorry about
asked
that.
for I just asked for public comment. Pete told us about homeless camp and cleanup. We just talked about a potential, working with a local community member who's been trying to address this and kind of maybe figuring out how to support her to do more of what she was doing that was actually successful. I don't think there's any other comments on the public comment period, so you can.
Yeah, sorry about that.
take
I don't
on
know
from
what
there.
happened there. It just bumped us off or bumped me off completely. So, well, all right. So I'll just jump into the next section then, if that's all right, Trupti.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, what we had is I was going to get Melissa to give us a few updates, and she's on the call, but she's running late and can't talk until a little later. So I'm going to skip. She had some updates she was going to give, obviously, from Amanda's office. And then I just wanted to give her kudos and Amanda's kudos for the CO7 and CO8 passing for the conservation overlays for Sunnyside. And then she's got a couple other updates about ADUs and everything. And I see Bill Hare's on here, and I had asked him to sort of give an update because he seems to be his fingers on the pulse of the near Northwest area plan. And I know they've had a few things move forward lately. So I was going to ask Bill to say a few things about what's going on over there and how it might affect us.
You're on the pulse, huh?
Yeah, you're in there.
Ear to the ground, Bill. Ear to the
You
ground.
know everything.
Right. Well, to keep it brief, I think the things to point out there are that from a public engagement perspective, things have been quiet for a number of months now. And the reason for that is that the city planners and the consultants have been behind their curtain doing the dirty work of planning. Not dirty work, but magical work of planning. And what we as a steering committee, Tripti and I being on the steering committee, have been doing each month in the monthly meetings is we're getting a chance to look at the draft recommendations that are going on behind the curtain. And we get homework each month where we have to go through and read the details in the document and make notations and suggestions and ask questions. And then that's the basis for the refinement of the work they're doing. As far as the public is concerned, the summer has been essentially set aside for the next set of engagement, where the draft proposed plan will be coming out over the course of at least 2 months or 3 months, and there'll be lots of engagement activities. I believe this month's steering committee or next month's steering committee will be hearing more about how they're going to conduct that engagement. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And I would say towards the end of May, 1st of June is when it'll start to become a little bit more visible, and you'll start to hear a lot more about the plan. So, Trupti, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I think that's pretty much where we stand. We just got done with mobility and transportation, and economy and quality of life is the next section that we'll be putting our comments towards.
Yep, that's it. Those are the two things that we've had an opportunity to look at or comment on. And then they're going to send it out to the public kind of in a similar way, if I understand correctly, that they'll have this online tool for providing comments. But yeah, that's good, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Yeah, well, I just want to, make sure, because every time I talk to somebody about the direction of different areas around Northwest Denver, it seems like a lot of other decisions that are going on in the planning and developmental services are all sort of just like being kicked down the road to see how the Northwest plan flushes out. And they don't really want to give you any straight answers on anything else because they're just kind of waiting how it's going to dovetail back in. So
Good call out, Rod. That's actually true. Very
yeah.
good.
Every time I talk to anybody down there, they're like, we'll see, it's got all, so anyway, well, thank you, Bill, for that. And I'll make sure that we get like links to those things once those sort of mechanisms are put in place so that everybody has access to it as they start to re-engage here in the next couple of months. So we'll come back to Melissa for the rest of the things in the updates. I'm going to jump onto a few announcements I had, and then maybe if they're on here, a few of the people, we have 3 properties that wanted to bring up some stuff, give some small presentations. So we'll try to get those in and then come back to Melissa at the end. And again, if anybody's got questions about some of this stuff, let me know. I'm just sort of playing this by ear as I go through. So some of the announcements I had was the property at 4055 Inca Street has applied for a liquor license, and they're going to be having a virtual hearing on that on March 29th, later this month at 9 a.m.
This is the property under Zia. This is
Yeah.
one of the commercial spaces under Zia. And actually, I think they've taken up 2 suites. It is already open as a coffee shop. They do not have a liquor license. And actually, they're applying for liquor and standard cabaret. I was in the area, happened to stop by, and their business model seems to be they're going to be open more during the day, maybe host some special events in the evening, a Sunday, like weekend brunch. They are not looking to be a nightclub or anything like that, but they have applied for both of those things. I have not spoken to the owner yet. It was their GM that I went and talked to about this. And honestly, if they do their work and get input from the people who live above them, that might be the only group of people that are the most impacted. It could be, a block around them, but it's only one block on the other side of Jason that could potentially be impacted by them. But
well, there's a map that they have to notify and do all of that, and the link is on here, Trupti.
Yep.
If you click on that, if anybody's interested in the Google Drive, they can click on that link and it'll essentially bring up that folder. And this is all the documents that, if you want more information on that they sent us about that application. So with the petitions that they circulated and all of that sort of stuff. So if
they've circulated those, because the way excise and license works is like it's a recommendation. They don't have to do it, and then they rely on people showing up to be against something, and all they need is one signature for.
Right.
So it's really, that part is pathetic, but it does sound like that they plan on doing more of a daytime thing. They do not want to be a nightclub or a late night a venue. And they are actually, this is their second location. They're actually out of Golden.
Okay. Well, and if anybody has any concerns or anything, feel free to reach out. And if we feel like we need to bring up anything with them, let us know as a neighborhood organization. The next one is a couple of variances that have been applied for in the neighborhood. They're ones that I keep getting, and Trippy was telling me the workload of accepting all these emails that come out of the city each month. 2102 West 44th Avenue has submitted a request to operate as an arts and recreation entertainment business. And this is that building that's been recently renovated down there a little bit further east of from like Radiator before you get to the park.
It's Umatilla and 44th, that little
Yep.
triangle building right there. And I think the name of the business is going to be Bodied, Bodied, Bodied. And they're basically going to operate as a gym. It's kind of interesting that it's gym, recreational arts. That's kind of, and this is a use permit.
Yes. Yeah.
is-
It's not a zoning change or
Right.
anything like that, but I actually called because I don't deal with this too often, but just if anybody's curious as to why this has to go this way is because in the zoning code, arts and recreation underneath the UMX 2X, that use is only allowed when you file this Z pin, which means they have to go through a zoning permit review and they have to give out information about what the tenant is requesting. And so essentially this is the notification for that informational notice portion of that requirement for them to be able to move in there.
Maybe you talked to the same person. This was
Yep.
Anna Valdez.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. She called me back and because I wasn't quite sure what that process is, because it's not really clear in the documentation. It almost looks like it's a zoning change request, and it's not. It's just a use. It's just a use, and I think it's really triggered because there hasn't really been anything in that space for so many years. Nobody remembers what was there before. So
what's really interesting, because I kind of got a little bit of detail, is that before the new zoning code, which might have been 2010, I think, right?
yes,
God, you would
yeah,
remember.
yes.
It was designated as a limited use property. And it has I think it was like a B designation. When they they changed everything to this new zoning code, they continue to apply this limited use. That's what the 2X is. If it was 2, it would not need this use
right.
Permit. But this 2X continued to make it a limited use. Therefore, they had to apply for any use out of this very narrow
designation. And you can look here, if you look through, there's not a lot other than say like a restaurant that's allowed in that designation.
And a couple other things that are important is parking has no impact and is not even relevant for use purposes, they don't care. Right. They don't care if you object to parking. They don't care if parking's an issue. For use purposes, parking doesn't matter. So even if all of us said parking's a problem, they'd be like, we won't even consider this because parking is irrelevant for use. One of the things on this particular use that is important, and it was part of the package, and I think Rod put all of this in, was that it's very specific, and the one thing they cannot do is do outdoor stuff. For instance, like CrossFit. You know how CrossFit does a lot of calisthenics?
Roll their tires out into the sidewalk and stuff like that.
They cannot do that.
Yeah.
And if they do, they would be out of compliance. Another thing to know about this permitted use piece is it goes with the land. So, for instance, this particular body, this business is there for 2 years, and then a new tenant comes in. And let's just assume the new tenant is CrossFit, and this new tenant did not know they can't be outside. They don't have to go and say to them, we have a use where we'll be outside, because they would say, it's a gym. We're still a gym. They would never know. And this is one of those gaps. Okay, it would end up taking people who live in the neighborhood, who know the rules, and realize that the next tenant doesn't know the rules and is breaking the rules, and then bring it to the attention of CPD. That was an interesting aspect, but the next person may not know the rules and may break them. And, so something to keep, if you live in the area or you walk by the area, and if they're using it as an outdoor thing, any tenant, this one or the next one, there's a problem. But otherwise, that is a thing that could happen.
Well, and they can, I talked to her a bit about that as well, because, you know, it's a pretty nebulous description that they gave for what is this arts and, you know, entertainment sort of thing. And, you know, she did describe that it's sort of a personal training space, you know, type. So, and it's such a small space, the occupancy will be controlled by the zoning code or the building code based on the use. So that will be limited. So she couldn't change and like pack a ton of people in there. And then, you know, you talk about the out on the sidewalk and disturbances to the rest of the neighborhood. That should be controlled by noise ordinances and stuff. And hopefully somebody would call if somebody came in there and did something a little different.
I would, you know what, if it was at 10 in the afternoon and people are like, huh, 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 no one would actually think that was a noise disturbance, but it would actually be out of compliance from the use permit. But it was an interesting thing to learn about. I too didn't understand it, so I made a phone call because I wanted to be like, what is this?
Yep.
How does that
Yeah.
impact our neighborhood?
It's
But
not very descriptive. And I think that outside sidewalk stuff would be controlled by one of the other things I want to bring up in one of my next announcements. But
Cool.
is there anything else on that? Does anybody have any questions? And I'll move on if we're good. The next one is there was a application for a variance on 3858 North Wyandotte Street, which is basically it's a lot that's a little too small and to build an ADU on with the square footage, so they're non-compliant lot. And they appealed. They had a hearing on the 7th. And the decision, when I got the hearing yesterday afternoon decision in an email, it says they've continued the case. So apparently the people applying for it didn't have all the information that the variance committee or board wanted to see. And so they're going to have to go back. But just to let you know, and there's I dropped that information also in the Google Drive there. If anybody's curious as to what it looks like they're trying to convert existing garage to an ADU on the property, and they can't do that right now because of the lot size. So
and we're sharing all of these notifications and kind of letting the residents know this ADU folks, they haven't reached out to us and said, can we get your approval? Can we get a letter of support?
No, there was no one here that wanted to speak either about this project with us. I didn't get any notification if somebody wanted to come talk to us or any of that. So
but we're just sharing all notifications we get, because as an RNO, we don't want to be gatekeepers, number one. And our whole point of existing is to make sure that we share everything that comes to us. So that's kind of why we're sharing all of these notifications and placing all the documentations for review.
Yeah, and that info's in there. If there's anybody here that's a neighbor to that property and they're concerned about it, go ahead and dig in there and you can look and give us a buzz. All right, the next one is, this is something more I thought was important for Denver's released their new curb and patio outdoor place program. It was that stuff they did at the beginning of COVID, like there were rules where they could put additional seating and stuff. And apparently they've reworked the thing now and it's in a more permanent form. So if there are any business owners on here that's relevant to, and that probably would come into play if you're trying to do something with that fitness gym out on the sidewalk, like
I don't think so. I don't think
it'd probably be denied.
No. This is not like that. This is where you put in seating out there,
right?
And your liquor license applies to there. Your food and whatever beverage program applies. I don't think it's the same at all. But this is more. It's interesting. Monkey Barrel's right there.
Well, and it sounds like that you need to renew this on a regular basis. So any business owners that are here tonight, or if you know anybody that you think like that they already have this going on out there from COVID, it sounds like the city wants them now to come back in with this more permanent situation, reapply with what they're expecting to be there on a more permanent basis in the future.
And there are changes because during COVID, they just didn't ask a lot of questions.
They were fast and loose.
And now there are actually more rules, and some businesses that may have been operating and like threw up a pop-up or a tent, now there could be some setback issues that they didn't have before because during the pandemic, they were just very lax. Now this is a permanent outdoor program, and they're looking at various phases, right? So one is this above curb that could include the right of way. Then there's below curb, some of the places where, parts of the street and parking were taken away, and tables were put on, and then there was like this above curb on private property. Those are three different programs, and they're going to have three different sets of rules on the operationalizing of this new program. So, you know, this is important for the folks who either do it now or want to do it in the future,
Right.
or need to do it in the future. And I will be sending an email out to all of our businesses that, you know, in the neighborhood who have been either operating or thought about operating, to give them this information. And if they need to get connected with
So
resources.
Trupti, this PDF that I'm showing now is in there in the folder underneath the agenda, as well as a ton of other stuff they sent. It's a lot of information, and the applications are there because the link to the city's website is there. So if you have any questions about it, you can access it there.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is and
Can I? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Rob.
sorry, go ahead.
Hey, this is Hunter Floyd. I mentioned I was on the call earlier. I'm a part of the 4155 Jason team at 42nd Street and Jason, the development team there. This is actually that item that you just brought up is something that we've been discussing a little bit. Actually, we discussed the week before it was published and sent out. I just would be curious to hear this group in the neighborhood sort of thoughts on that item and the ability to use permanently either, you know, what we call parklets, kind of utilizing parallel parking spaces for, you know, for the enjoyment of people to sit in like a cafe style, right? More kind of European style, or using the right of ways, and just because it's something we're kind of considering at 42nd and Jason. And so sorry for the long-winded
No.
question, but we'd love to hear kind of what, you know, everybody on, you know, in the neighborhood thinks about that.
Well, Hunter, the one thing I would like to add is that we have not, and if you've sent it to us and we've posted it, we haven't had a discussion, but the changes in the property and the design is something that we're bringing back to the table, because the prior owner and developer, who's going to be the developer, decided to move this and sell this to you guys, and you want some changes to what you're going to do on that property. So we would really need to think about
Right.
that in the, you know, aspect of what are you doing there, and how much space do you need from the parking side versus how much space are you providing as part of your commercial or courtyard or otherwise, and what's available as a right of way, because those are all kind of a little separate. So I don't, correct me, but I don't think we know exactly what you're doing there, if it's a change from prior. And this group on the phone right now, certainly we don't have this in the forefront of our mind to determine what makes sense on that property right now.
Hey, Troopties, sorry for kind of speaking out of turn on this. I more
not
generally
speaking
was
out.
just interested to kind of hear all y'all's thoughts on that particular item.
Yeah.
In general, you know, we'll be prepared to present to you guys this. And just to give you a little bit of background, Jonathan Bush, who led Littleton Capital Partners, I don't know if y'all are aware, but he passed away unexpectedly last year, probably a few months after you guys had a lot of conversations. So, you know, just respect to Jonathan and, you know, what he's done in the Denver community. And we were fortunate to, in some ways, you know, be recommended as a developer. My partners in Denver as a developer to kind of pick up where Jonathan left off on not just this project in Sunnyside, but another one of their projects as well. And so the spirit of what was proposed with you all is very much intact. So with the idea that, you know, we would have some sort of retail, hopefully a restaurant space on 42nd Street and Jason, and then, you know, apartments and kind of a boutique style above. Due to some, you know, recent Denver code changes, the project's changed a little bit. We have a little bit more affordable housing and we have a few more units, but we're still, you know, just at 100 units in a pretty, you know, relatively small boutique project size. So we'll be prepared to present to you guys maybe at your next meeting.
Right?
Yeah, and Hunter, I've already got you on the agenda for next month. I apologize, we just couldn't get you in with the late notice for this month.
No worries. It would have been a rush today for us to
Yeah.
be able to present. We want to be, prepared and show you guys kind of, some good imagery that y'all can look at and give us your feedback for. So again, sorry for kind of
No,
jumping in
that's-
here.
Oh, no, you're
Well,
not.
and to answer your question really quickly, we have not, as a committee, formally discussed this topic, I think, as a general principle. I mean, I would say personally, and this is not as a role in this as the co-chair of the committee, I'm in favor of anything that helps, encourage engagement with with the public realm along our business corridors. And so generally speaking, I'm favorable to it as long as it's done in the right way. So overall, I'd say I'm for this type of use of our right of ways and increasing the engagement there along those streetscapes. But obviously,
think
each
what
one
we
is
need
going to
to-
be looked at individually.
Yes, and I think the individually part is kind of important because depending on where the location is and what else is happening in the context within where it is, we need to think about the below curb and whether in those areas parking is going to be needed for the businesses or residents or the single family homes versus somewhere else where it's already fully built out and parking isn't even a problem. Something like where you are, we are looking at lots, thousands of new homes coming online at some point. So we have to really be cognizant of the context of what's happening in that area in terms of how we would feel about that. And actually, this isn't even completely up to us, right? Whether even we're in support of it or not. I think the city is going to have something to say about where they think this is appropriate and not, and which is why they're going through this process of application, because now they're looking at something on a permanent basis and not a temporary basis. But to Rod's point, yeah, I would be too, in favor of things that benefit the public realm, but it might be a case by case basis or an area by area basis. What makes sense?
So again, sorry to kind of speak up here, but it is top of mind a little bit for me. What's interesting about the way that we've read the code and our architect has read the code, which is the same architect as Chad Mitchell with Meridian 105, who's a phenomenal group here in there in Denver. You can not only utilize potentially parking spaces if the city allows it, but you can also utilize right of way. So that kind of, hell strip, if you will,
Yep.
between the curb. Yeah. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it, which I think is phenomenal.
So the hell strip,
Yeah,
and
the
not
hell
below
strip.
curb. Okay.
Yeah. But just so everybody's kind of aware, it isn't necessarily always a sacrifice for parking, because I think,
Right.
parallel
When
parking-
you're referring to the health strip, that you're generally speaking of the street lawn designate, whether it's lawn or whether it's pavers or whatnot, that area between the
kind of
sidewalk
the
and
area
street.
between the side. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Between the sidewalk and the street. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
And you know what? This can be a conversation, Rod. We could bring in
Yeah, absolutely.
Johnson for this conversation. And I think there is a difference between what you were saying was a parklet, which I thought was more on the street, versus the health strip, which is the above curb, which is what's going on now. And frankly, if I were you guys, because the above curb application just opened up, I would apply. You would get the city's, feedback on your location, your project on the above curb. I frankly think above curb, and the use of the health strip is a great use for public space.
We agree, and I'm glad to hear that you feel the same way. So it's just that literally we talked about it this week, and so it's fun to hear it kind of come up in your meeting tonight. Again, thank you for letting me interject, guys.
Well, thanks for popping in, Hunter, and we'll catch up next week and solidify stuff for next month's meeting.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ruthie.
All right, we're kind of right up on time, so I want to make sure we're respectful of everybody. So I'm just going to jump through a couple of these other ones. There are two, these are larger than a few minute topic discussions here that I wanted to make an announcement for. One is we got asked by the city to give a position on RNOs are being asked to give a position on the ADUs in Denver and fill out their positions on ADUs. That would entail, I believe, Trupti, you probably know a little bit more about doing surveys and seeing how the neighborhood feels about all this stuff and getting feedback. It's a lot bigger discussion than tonight. And the idea was to have a bigger discussion next month on ADUs specifically when we have a little bit more time. And I'm going to have Melissa give a brief update on ADUs when she's available tonight too. But down the road, I think we're going to have a lot more conversations about ADUs. And I think that's where this little RNO statement of our position would come into play.
And, and actually, I think one of the challenges is, if I am not mistaken, what they're looking for right now is, I think, due by the end of this month. So there's no way for us to have a presentation, open it up to public feedback, for us to say we did what we should do to collect public feedback and then put a position together beyond that. So I think what we would say right now, and this falls into a lot of the kinds of things that the city asks us for, is that we want to make sure that the public knows that comment and public feedback period is open to everyone, not just the RNOs. And we would want everybody to look at this stuff and, provide letters or feedback or revisions. That's what they're looking for. It doesn't need to come through the RNO, but for us to do it properly, we need the time to ask everyone and then take a position. So
yeah, and that email just came in like Monday.
Yeah,
I mean, it's literally like
so we don't really have time to do a thorough enough job and then really be thorough and say we surveyed the neighborhood and this is what we heard. Therefore, I would suggest that if this is an area of interest for you or people to look at this and provide feedback directly to the city as they make available for every one of us.
Perfect. Thanks, Trupti. And the last little announcement I've got is there's been some conversation about forming a new task force similar to the one we did for the CO7 and CO8 conservation overlays for Sunnyside, to take a look at the business corridor going down 44th from Federal to the park. And the concern stems from people being worried about the loss of commercial space at the, at the street, at the sidewalk. And there's been a couple projects, I think, where we've lost it to just apartments and we've lost some of the commercial spaces. And so anybody that might be interested in that should reach out to Trupti or I. We're going to start putting together like a group to sort of look into that, what the future of 44th could look like, and what we can do to sort of protect and save some of the commercial spaces before they're all gone. Because it's changing pretty dynamically over there. So if anybody's interested in that sort of topic, it's a much bigger topic than we're going to discuss tonight, but reach out to Trupti or I and we can start putting those ideas together.
So one thing I want to add to that is there's going to be two phases of the work groups that are being put together. The first phase, we want to find city and experts. So those are folks either in transportation, in urban planning, zoning, that kind of thing, to help us understand what the challenges are, the obstacles are, and whether we have solutions and tools to deal with that. So that's kind of the first phase of a work group. And it's going to be one where we have experts in the field. The only thing that we would be looking for that's a non-expert is going to be a project manager. This is the person who's going to keep documentation, create the meetings, and keep everybody moving. Because we don't know whether this is even plausible. So that's kind of the first phase, is what's doable there in the current environment. And then if we have solutions, ones that we could, and again, Amanda Sandoval and city council and our council person is on board with us doing this and working on this project this way. But the second phase would be if we now have real tools and real solutions and maybe, compromises. For instance, the compromise for us, that's a real compromise we have to think about, is if we are asking someone to get rid of first floor having residential and we want commercial, are we willing to go up one story? One of the things that we have to think about is one story and retail financially feasible for the people who own this property and what they want to do. So that's where we're sticking with business owners and planners, transportation, city planning, and we'll include, obviously, people in the city too. They'll kind of be on board with what we're trying to do. Second phase is going to be where we actually have a larger work group where we have to really now think about actual compromises if is feasible. So 2 phases on this. So just kind of keep that in mind that the first phase may be a little bit more limited to the work group, and the second phase is actually going to be broader. And then the third phase is actually taking it to the public, assuming all of this lines up and we have something that's doable, we take it to the next level, we come up with real solutions, and then we take it to the public and see what they think before we can move it to like city, to the city council. So, but if you're interested, please send, your name along. And I think maybe, Rod, at some point we can have a survey and figure out where people fall into these phases and when,
Yeah, get people involved. And just so everybody knows, the idea was this would not be a 5 to 7 year process like last overlays were. This is going to be very fast moving. The idea is to do it within a year. And so it won't be a
I
long
say
term
18 months.
commitment. Okay, yeah. Well, the idea was to push it as fast as we
Being
can.
The process
realistic.
you just outlined is a 2-year process.
There you go.
And
Okay.
we will fail if we make it that complicated. It cannot be that complicated. And by the time we are done with the 2-year process, every one of those properties will have become townhouses.
Well, we already know that the Senior Assistance Center is not going to be, and those folks are actually going to be part of this work group because they're urban planners and have done this kind of stuff in the Rhino area. So they are actually on board. I think there's another property, one of the garages on 44th, that I think they're going to come up next month. They're wanting to talk to us about what is it you want as a neighborhood. So this is our opportunity to throw that out there saying, this is what we want. We're trying to figure out how to make it happen. So they can be a pilot as well. Again, Amanda's on board. The challenge for us is what they did in Tennyson is not going to be feasible because of the way the alleys run. So we have to think about whether we're going to have specific nodes. So yeah, I think Jonathan, I disagree. I think this is doable in 2 years.
Sorry, I just want to keep moving forward. I didn't intend to, this is a huge topic, and if anybody's interested, reach out. I mean, we could set up a special session to discuss this too. But I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I see that, and I apologize. It's Marika. Is that how you pronounce it, Marika? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I do want to go through here. We have a couple people that are going to be presenting, and I can let you share the screen, Marika, if that works for you for your presentation.
Yeah,
they have a property. It's the 4358 North SUNI, and
this is the Phillips Automotive, guys. This is coming.
We've seen this. We've seen this with the parking variants that they were previously requesting, and now that's off the table. And there's some other things that she's going to be doing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then allow. Let's see. I think
you should be able to share.
I think you can just share. I don't, I'm kind of running the SUNY one. So see if Marika, if you're able to share there.
You should be able to. I think the settings are such that anybody can share.
Making me do some privacy settings. So let me fix that real quick. Interesting.
Marika, while you're doing that, this is Matt Davis. I work with Marika on this project, and I think the previous conversation is a great segue into this project. And unfortunately, we've been working on this for a while, and we feel our client, thank goodness he's patient, but he's trying to do what we think is a smart infill development, taking advantage of some neat old structures. But if we wanted to do townhomes on this property, we'd be under construction by now. The process to go through the SDP and variances and changing of opinions on what variances are required has been a long process. And Marika lives a half a block from this property. I live nearby. we feel strongly that this needs to be preserved as a mixed use commercial property, but it's not the easy thing to do. Unfortunately, I'll let Marika take it over, and I'm certainly here to assist and answer questions if needed.
All right. So yeah, as you guys are probably familiar, quick kind of image of the existing garage and that existing service station on that lot. So just for those who don't necessarily know the project summary from the previous presentation that Anthony did, we're trying to keep those existing structures, as Matt mentioned. We want to highlight what's there right now. It fits into the fabric of Sunnyside. People know it. And I think it's important to keep that there. And so we've kept those there and then added an addition to the western side. And then we'll also review, there's some additions kind of in between that help unify the site. The ground floor level is eating and drinking establishment in essentially each of these buildings. And then there's also a basement underneath the west addition. And similar to what Matt kind of was talking about is, we could take this to be townhouse. We could, max out the site, build 2 stories, go up to the 30 feet. And we, feel that that doesn't fit this corner that well. We want to keep with kind of the language that's on 44th and fit into the neighborhood well. So this is just a summary kind of our site plan. So again, these diagonals are the existing structures, that existing garage, the existing gable. What's in red outlined is what the new addition is proposed to be. This is 44th up here, and on your left is SUNI facing north. And then basement level, like I said, this is exercise fitness kind of area planned for, and then restaurant use in each one of these buildings. Roof plan, just kind of some preliminary elevations to give an idea of scale and just kind of the general look of what we're going for here. These are kind of side elevations, and I can go back if anyone has questions on those ones, but diving into kind of the variance requests that we're asking for. So previously, like Matt mentioned and was mentioned before, is parking was kind of what we were looking for previously, but as the zoning reviewers kind of looked more into it, and as we added an addition to unify the site, they kind of re-looked at the Denver zoning code and the small lot exemption and felt like that was not a needed item anymore. And so we are not required to have the parking requirement like we were before, but we are asking for, on the small additions that we have, we are asking for those to be within the side interior setback. So there's that 10-foot side setback on the south end of our lot. And so these structures right here in the back, we're proposing putting those within that section. So they're about 1'4" off of the property line. And the reason for that, as you can see in this image, is this render, is it helps if they're not proud of these existing structures. We want to keep those as a highlight of the site and not take away, but also have a functional space. So, in order for this gable to have more of a functional use, these additions help kind of allow for a storage area to help function those. And it also just, it adds kind of a buffer along that south edge and unifies these pieces. So that's why we're looking for those to kind of go into that 10-foot setback. There's kind of another render image of, with them being farther on the south, on the 44th edge, you're really not perceiving them as this proud element and not taking away from those existing structures. The next variance request we are looking for is, we have a window well that is in that same 10-foot side interior setback, and it is 20'8", and that's really to allow the basement space to have a better feel, a better usable retail space that doesn't feel like you're in a basement. Instead of building 2 stories, it's kind of a lower scale, lower impact space that is, still usable and allows for light to get in. And so that's why we are proposing that. And then The other items, let me go back to the summary page, is a ZIPSI is required due to our proximity to the protected district. And so if I go back to our site plan, this outdoor dining courtyard, which is intended to be used by the 3 eating and drinking establishments, would be using this outdoor dining courtyard. And so that just requires a ZIPSI. And I believe, Matt, unless you have anything else you want to add, that is the general gist of what we are.
No, I think that was a great summary. Anthony was disappointed you couldn't be here tonight. I think a lot of you have already seen this.
Yeah,
we're excited about the uses. We're not showing actual businesses in here, but because the leases haven't been signed, there's still a lot of work to be done. But the intent is that some of the current uses, the pizzeria, bakery, so that some of those will populate these new spaces once they're built out. But yeah, we're anxious to hear your thoughts and answer questions.
My first question really quick is, there's those new townhomes that have gone up on the south, to the south of that property there.
Yeah.
How far are they only the 5-foot setbacks off of their property line? So essentially there'll be about 5 feet between your new structures and their recently new.
That's right.
Sounds about right. Yeah. And this, for reference,
Yeah.
on the site plan, is kind of the outline of when it was under construction, the foundation line, for just a reference of that proximity.
Yeah. Okay.
It might be a little bit more than 5, but I'm pretty sure it's close to the 5-foot minimum.
I just didn't know if there was any fire code issues between a residence and a commercial when it's less than 10 foot or anything like that, but I'm sure that'll all be taken care of in the building department. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions on it? And you guys are basically coming here to look for a letter of support from the RNO?
That's right. And just to explain the process a little bit more, so there's 2 things we're requesting: the variance, but the ZIPSI also has to go to the board. They can be separate agenda items. We felt it was much more efficient to present this as one package. So we're asking for support for both items.
Okay.
How come you need, I'm not against a ZIPSI, but I don't know why you need one.
So this came about after we were on the agenda the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Our zoning reviewer, because we have an outdoor patio within 50 feet of a protected district, a ZIPSI is required. And we've
if I'm not correct,
protected district
is the residentials. If you're doing an outside patio with alcohol or something like that, the protected district are the residents. Bodega on 38th actually needed this for the same purposes.
Yeah.
And I would suspect Bacon, Radiator, I suspect several businesses on 44th probably needed the same permitting exception or approval because they're also within 50 feet of a residence.
Well, and I think that both of the variances that you're requesting and the ZIPSI sort of dovetail together here nicely. Mm-hmm. My opinion is putting that infrastructure at the back sort of separates that public outdoor patio space. Whereas, you could put those connecting elements within the set are within your allowable setbacks, and then put patio out there, and they wouldn't have an issue. But then, of course, the patio would be next to the residences. So I appreciate that you sort of screened off the public right-of-way activity in that courtyard area from the residences. Now, in terms of like a letter of support, Trupti, are we allowed to sort of call for a vote on this? And Bill probably knows better with with your experience as well, tonight, or do we have to have a comment period before we can go to a vote for the RNO to see if people are in support or not of a recommendation?
So I think we've moved towards making sure that we give an opportunity for everyone, not just the folks who show up on this call, because that changes from day to day to day, right?
Yeah.
Week. And I think in this situation, I think we have the time. So for instance, tomorrow or the day after, we can send out a survey and explain all this, put this together. I am very certain that most people who voted for, allowing the variance for the same reason, which is everybody wants to see the use you're putting together versus more housing, period, on 44th. In fact, that's kind of something that we are trying to put a work group towards to deal with. So I think you're gonna get the support, but for us to check our boxes and do things right, we would. Now, what is the date? I think it's an April.
What is your deadlines?
Yeah. What's your date for the hearing?
Marika, do you have the
4th? It's April 4th or April 2nd. Let me double check. I believe it's the 4th, but let me pull it up real quick. Yep, April 4th is when the BOA hearing is. So I would assume, Matt, is it a week before that they would likely need that letter?
we can confirm that.
Yeah.
I think if we showed up
Austin too and find out.
Yeah.
Here's what I would suggest is this week, we send out a survey with this information and give it a 2-week time, review and post it on all of our socials and stuff and get people to participate in it. And then in 2 weeks, we close it and we, go back and say, here's what we heard, this is where we are. I think for the most part, a smaller group, this board would be in favor. Bill has his hand.
Bill has his hands up there, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to play a little devil's advocate. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more commentary as to why you haven't gone to a second story on the new building.
Yeah, so this has been a process, but the last time this was in front of your group, we had 3 separate buildings. We want to keep the existing 2 buildings, but we want to make up for the program area that we're losing by not building out through the entire site. The small lot exemptions, there's 2 exemptions that were relevant. We were previously using the ground floor is exempt on a small zone lot. And we were asking for a variance to not provide parking to the basement level. As the project has developed, we like the scale. We prefer this not to be 2 stories. It's a footprint that isn't especially efficient. If we have a second story, it's of a size that, do we need an elevator? Do we need a stair? Do we need a second stair? And all of a sudden the second floor is taking away more from the first floor than you're gaining. But the reason we've kind of arrived at this solution is a practical one as well. When we had 3 buildings, Denver Water and Wastewater also wanted 3 water taps and 3 sewer taps. And so by calling it one building, and they're not against this by any means, by having one building, we have 1 water tap, 1 grease trap, or 1 grease interceptor, 1 sewer tap. It's just much more efficient. And in the end, I think it's better. I think those buildings on the back edge, like you mentioned, screen, the courtyard, these aren't big buildings that are existing. It adds some function to these small buildings for storage, for walk-in coolers, for trash. I mean, it's valuable space, much more so than the square footage we're adding. It's just very valuable space. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that gives you the background.
Thanks. And just to clarify, I don't dislike the scale. I like the scale very much. The discussion of the well and the basement, window well in the basement, just gave me an idea relative to the fact that, we want added density, and we're missing out on some added density by not having that second floor. But I do understand what you're saying about the fact that you're not going to get as much usable square footage out of the second floor because of the size of the building. So I appreciate that explanation.
Great.
Okay, so I think generally everyone's in favor of this. We'll go ahead and we'll put the survey out and share all this information with everybody. And then I'll get in touch with you guys next week and let you know it went out and all of that stuff. And we'll work forward to making sure we get whatever the result of the letter is out to you guys prior to you guys needing it for your next hearing.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you so much for coming and showing us what you got going.
Thanks.
It's nice to see. All right, I'm going to take back over control of share screen here. Well, what I might do is just wait. The next item on the agenda is, if I can flip to it, is well, there was a zone map amendment. Michael Lofgren, is he here tonight? Is he here to present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Mike R. Okay, cool. Do you want to share your screen? This is a zone map amendment for 4690 Clay Street.
Yep. Let me share here. Did that work?
No.
It doesn't look like it. Okay.
Let's see here, and I can.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Yep, we're up now.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Mike.
Okay,
Sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
Okay. Yep, I'm Mike, owner 4690 North Clay Street. We are a block south of I-70 on Clay Street, and we are a corner lot, just to kind of give you a reference on where we're located. As you can see on this top one, this shed is gone. The city actually made me take that down. I put that up during COVID. They didn't like it, so that is gone now. So we live in this little 700 square foot house right here, no basement, no second floor, just a straight up rambler, I guess you'd call it. So we're proposing building a main house on the front. We're back on the alley here. So we just have this little house, and then we have this what looks to be a ton of front yard. So we are going to put a main house that's kind of outlined there, and then the garage will be on the alley. And there will be an ADU above, and we're going for the C1 rezone from C to C1, so just a single family house with an ADU. Here is what we are going for. This is a two-story home with a basement, and then there you see in the back 2-car garage on the alley with an ADU, about a 700 square foot ADU above there. Here is the kind of a similar thing, but just kind of shows you the main level. And yeah, garage ADU on the back alley there. And here's some renderings of, don't pay attention to color or anything else. Not that you care about that anyway, I guess, but just kind of as a mass to what the house will eventually look like. You've got your front space, TBD on the 2 decks, but that's what's drawn right now. Definitely the lower one, maybe the second floor. Some brick, some siding, and then some type of a cedar accent to go on there. The side, this is the top left picture, is the view from 47th, and just adds a little bit of some character with the gables and stuff like that. That will continue to the inside of the home there. Brick watercourse at the bottom. This fireplace here, we'll have some masonry on that would be the south side. That actually lines up with a few fireplaces. Pergola in back, and then garage with an ADU. The garage ADU will have a flat roof. Well, as it's drawn right now, it is a flat, low slope type roof, but exterior will have similar, exterior building materials to finish it off. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. And the main thing is just the garage with the ADU above is what we're gonna rezone for.
Now, so you're currently a SUC1?
No, we're just a UC. We're going for a C1.
Oh, C, you're going for C1. Okay.
Yeah.
And is what the lot size is big enough for that to be a C1?
Yeah, we're
okay.
60. We're
oh, yeah.
6200.
Okay.
6200. Yep.
And just real for clarity, so there is currently the house that you live in, you're planning on demoing that and then building the new house and the new garage with the ADU up above.
Yeah, so
Okay.
our construction, that's correct. Our construction phasing, this is probably a better drawing. So actually this is a better drawing. So there's the existing home there. We'd actually like to get going on construction on this, and basically finish it off before we actually move from the existing home to the new house. And then it's, you know, basically the day after we move into the main home, demo the back and continue construction on the garage / ADU.
Perfect. So just knowing, because I've gone through a bunch of these things, and this might be something that comes up in Melissa's ADU update. By the time you get this through the permitting, the new ADU requirements will probably have been enacted, and us writing a letter. I'm assuming you're coming to us for a letter of support to support the zone map amendment. It might be a moot point. And I only bring that. Oh, really? It would still have to go through the C1, Melissa? I see you shaking your head. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah, my architect, this is why our rezoning, I mean, we're going to apply for building permit for the front house probably in like roughly a month or 5 weeks or something like that. And it seems like a really late rezone submission, and it is, because for a while we were unsure if this overlay was going to give people new permission to build ADUs. You know, everybody gets C1.
Right.
It turns out it's not.
Okay.
It's just people who already have that classification. It changes how you build and implement the ADU into the site, but it doesn't give you new permission, is how I understand it anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so we still have to rezone.
Okay.
Well, hopefully there are the NPI, and again, I don't know how long it's going to take for you to actually get done with the front house before you're looking for the rezone for the back, but hopefully the guidance for ADUs is going to be part of neighborhood planning initiative. And if it's possible, at least I hope, to be able to move text amendment for all ADUs to be allowed where they can, where you don't need a variance on lot size, to come as part of the process of approving NPI. Maybe there's a possibility that could happen depending on timing. So kind of keep that in mind. And Melissa, feel free if I said something wrong there about what we're hoping to achieve with NPI and potential ADU text amendment. But maybe you could save a little bit of money if NPI and that process goes through, as I hope it does.
So I do want to just chime in. This is one of the only areas actually in District 1. What would I call that? North Sunnyside is pretty much one of the few areas we have left to rezone for ADUs. We were just talking about that today. It is on our work plan. I'll probably be submitting a request or a pre-app in the next month or so for that. And we will send out some surveys and start our process on public engagement to try and get the rest of Sunnyside rezoned. But as far as the near northwest area plan, Sunnyside is it. Everyone else has the permissions in the near northwest area plan, except for this kind of northeast portion of Sunnyside.
So Amanda's going to push that through, or is she going to be hoping that the city does it as part of adoption of NPI?
I think she would like to push it through. It's probably a faster method.
Right.
But you know, we will see. You know, we just had this conversation today, so we'll start looking at this here shortly and have that conversation to try and get a planner assigned and do our outreach to the community.
Just a quick question, Michael.
Real quick, Melissa. This is Matt Chiodini.
Hey, Matt.
Is that west of Federal too in Harkness Heights? Or is that still?
Harkness Heights is not part of the near northwest area plan, but yes, Harkness Heights, Grandview also have not been rezoned. Also a weird little portion that's right between the two lakes there against I-70, basically from 46 to I-70 between the two lakes, also has no ADU permissions. One house in Sloan's Lake, that was a mistake. And then some areas up by the golf course. And
But
inspiration.
is the intent of Amanda to do a administrative blanket for the entire district
No,
of Area 1?
no.
Ah, come on.
Be bold.
Sorry,
No,
Matt.
Inspiration Point in particular has been very clear they have no interest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So no, we will be tackling this kind of neighborhood by neighborhood, but it's our intent to go Sunnyside first.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
excited to hear this. Thank you, Melissa.
Hey, Michael, I just had a quick question. Are there any other lots on that block that have already gotten ADUs or that are already C1 designated? Or are you going to be the first one in the area to go for this?
Yeah, there's one down my alley. There's an address on about halfway down our alley, going south, that they have to deliver, packages and whatnot down there. So I've seen that one. I guess I would have to check a map. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but I have seen a few north of the 46th Street.
Because that's something I've run into that they look at it just as an FYI. If there's any others that are close to it and all of that kind of stuff. Cool. So again, Trupti, is this the sort of thing we can?
Well, I actually that was where I was going. Mike, right now, you don't need a variance or rezone, or do you? I might be wrong, for the house that you're building in the front.
The house does not need any type of rezone. So if I was just building a single family house with an attached or detached 2-car garage leading to the alley, I would not need to do any rezoning activity. But it's the ADU is above the garage is the only.
But you're putting the plan in right now. You're putting the plan in right now, which means you do need to go to a rezone because you're putting in all of this together, correct?
Yeah, my architect and I, we have a plan to submit. Basically when we submit this in 4 or 5 weeks, this back house will look like a decommissioned, call it whatever you want, a decommissioned master. We'll take the appliances out and whatnot, and then it's kind of considered a decommissioned house. But we don't need to do that till we move over. Basically,
well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. When do you need to rezone? Because that makes a difference in terms of
in the comments, Jonathan brought up a good point that it's going to be a real tough challenge to allow you to have that second living unit still remaining on the property while you finish up the primary, because then you look like a 2-unit lot. And how they structure that agreement that you will tear that down after the new house so you can move from one to the other. I don't know how the city works.
I think they would they might make me, so that's where the decommissioning comes in. So to give me a CO on the front house so we can move in, I will have to decommission. I mean, honestly, we'll probably just demo it, as soon as we move in, we'll just demo it the day or the week after. But to get CO, we'll need to either decommission or demo this back house, and then they should sign off on CO, allowing us to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like your final inspection kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out whether you need a letter of support now or you need a letter of support when you decommission. That's where I'm unclear right now.
It would sort of be when he begins the variance, the zone lot amendment process. Okay. I mean, that is a 7-month process to get through a zone map change. And now if Amanda moves that through and pushes it, maybe that changes that timeline. But if he goes through the normal process, it's somewhere around 7 months to go. So he would need that letter after he's had his initial conversation. Like you have that pre-design meeting with them, and then they assign you all your tasks, and that's one of the checklist items.
Yeah,
sure.
So I think for us, I mean, again, back to if we want to do this right, we would do it where we would send it out for the community to review with all of this information, with the recording of this meeting, and ask them to weigh in on this. I mean, we could take a show of hands, or at least who on this call right now thinks this, they would not want this project as, shared with us. Is there anybody who thinks that they would not think that this rezone was appropriate? All right, I'm thinking
I don't see anybody that thinks it wouldn't be appropriate. So we'll go ahead and do that same thing, Michael. We'll go ahead and get this out in the survey. I'll share all your information, your presentation, the recording of tonight's meeting. So if we get any feedback, and then
Yep.
work on in the next couple of weeks, getting you a letter based on those findings.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Yep.
And
I think you have
the
time.
oh, good. I think the rezone will work out timing wise, because I think the permit will probably take. You were saying it's a 7-month process to rezone. I mean, our permit will probably take 6 or 7 months to get.
Yeah.
If that's what everybody's seeing out there. So.
Yep.
And
So
actually, but Mike, one of the things you're probably going to have to talk to your neighbors, and that's
Mhm.
an important aspect of when we put a survey together and say he's checked all his boxes like he should. So is that something you've already done? Is that something you're going to start? Because I would say that we do the survey after we allow you to do the part that you're supposed to do, where we're one of those parts. So have
Sure.
you had an opportunity to even survey all your neighbors and get their signatures yet?
I'm not going to say I went ahead and knocked doors, but I talked to my next door neighbor pretty well, and he's on board. I've talked to my neighbor across 47th, he's on board,
Okay, good.
and across the alley. But I have not done 6 or 8 local neighbors. I've done probably 3 so far, and I have reached out to Sandoval's office with an email and
So Mike,
all that.
instead of worrying about getting this out in the next 2 weeks, let's just work together. I think we're going to have plenty of time to get you a
Okay.
letter. But let's make sure we set you up as positively as we can, and that everybody has kind of everything, and ducks in a row,
Yeah.
and to make sure that they understand what you accomplished and did that you're supposed to do. So let's just work together. I don't think this is going to be a problem to get it done in the time that you're going to need.
Okay, great. Thank you.
perfect. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yep, appreciate it.
All right, I'll pull Michael's computer down there. How do I do that?
Did he
Here,
share?
I can stop.
Get it?
There we go. I just was
There we
switching
go.
back to,
Yep.
I was switching back to mine. So the next one we got, and I got to make it pretty quick. We've already seen this, and is Billy here tonight? Do we not see Billy?
I am sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
It's under Sophia Wong, which is my
Oh,
daughter.
yeah, there you are. There you are. Okay, you're down.
Yeah,
at the
let me
bottom. I
put
was
myself
looking-
on speaker and video.
So everybody here is probably familiar with Billy. He's been for several properties and was here before. He missed the 2 meetings ago, was not on that meeting, but Anshin, his architect, was, and he's brought back some more stuff. Billy, do you want to share your screen, or would you like me
Let
to?
me see if I can share my screen. Thank you very much for your time, SUNY board and Sunnyside neighbors, and to all that's attendance. My name is Billy Wang, and for those who don't know me, I've been involved in Sunnyside and in these neighborhood discussions and zoning requests. So let me see if I could share my screen. Hold on.
And I can bring mine up too, because it's not a ton that you've.
Yeah, there's only, so why don't you bring up, yes, that one, and zoom it in.
Yep, I'll zoom in.
Just the
here.
first page is sufficient enough.
So what Billy's here for again is like he was before though, but he didn't have the graphics, and we asked him to go back and come back and show us some stuff that was more in tune with what he's got going on. A letter of support from to again a zone lot a map amendment for this one parcel that's in the middle of 2 other properties that are CRX8.
And you could see the lines. So there's 4211 on 42nd, and if you could zoom in, or do you want me to bring it up?
No, I got it here.
Okay, if you could zoom in and go up to the first page, you could see the delimiter on those lines.
Right here, if you can see my mouse, and right here, I believe.
Yep. So both the south side of that little sliver, which is 6250, that's 4211. That's been rezoned to IA to CRX8.
You're talking here.
Correct.
Yeah. Right? And then this property here,
4295, has been rezoned to CRX8. And so there is.
So you're talking about this area here.
That's correct, Rod. And that's the 6250. And it's currently zone IA. I think everybody in attendance has heard this pitch and would agree that it's a no-brainer to just rezone that to CRX8 to make it consistent with that whole half a block.
And
And
since we are,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since we're running short on time, I'm just gonna let everybody see the eye candy that you
Sure.
brought this time.
Yes, and so I apologize. I missed January. It was a family emergency, and then I know we didn't have a SUNY meeting February. So what I'd like to show you guys is something that was just the most recent approval of rezoning, which was 4295. This is just stretched out on the actual footprint of not just 4295, but the
Right.
entire half block from 42nd to 43rd on Inca. It basically, I want so badly because I live in Berkeley, but I am a Northwest Central proper Denver resident. I want to see Sunnyside, and especially what's going on in East Sunnyside, basically fit everybody's like desires. And so when we approached SUNY and the city with this type of concept, they actually asked for, you know, activation of 42nd Inca or 43rd and Inca, and this is specifically for 4295, which is the north parcel that Rod showed. We just extended that map. Of course, there's affordable housing considerations and variables. We wanted to provide this or this visual just to show that with you know, the conceptual 228 units on a half a block with all the setbacks and the plazas and the community activation, streetscape activation, we could increase that density, but this is just conceptual wise. It does include commercial, which can still be, you know, discussed amongst us. And so really what I'm asking for today, Rod and Trupti and Sunnyside neighbors and all of the attendants, is I want to be respectful to the protocol, and we've gone to the pre-app with CPD of Denver. We've gotten Amanda Sandoval's approval to proceed with this rezoning of that little sliver from IA to CRX8. And so what I'd like to do before I do a formal application to the city of Denver for rezoning of that little sliver is to get Sunnyside's approval. If there's any questions, I'll take it right now.
Well, and we've discussed this before. It's really just that narrow, and I'll scroll back up here, that narrow little parcel that is still the IA, which is a 2-story designation, sandwiched between two properties that are already CRX8.
Right.
So just for clarification for everybody that may not be familiar with it. And again, Trupti, is this sort of the same protocol? We'll do the same thing and
yes, but one of the
out in the
things,
survey.
yeah, but one of the things we've done with properties like this is to make sure that all of the surrounding neighbors, and I think this is where it's going to be most of any of the single family homes across the alley, they may be the group that has questions on this project who are not here today. I may be wrong, but out of the 13 people, does anybody live on that block of Jason have any input on this? So one of the things that we have done is to make sure that the folks who are going to be the most impacted know about this project and what we are asking, or that we will be writing a letter of support. They may have something. And Billy, one of the last time you guys came, you guys showed us just a sliver, and we said, well, we know you're not going to develop just a sliver. Come back and show us something that of what it's actually going to be. So here we're talking about 228 units. And like you said, the density can actually be higher. So we're probably looking at more than 228 units. How would your neighbors that may be single family homes, what do they think about this? Do you know? Or should we bring them here?
No, I do. If you look at the north or southeast corner of Jason and 42nd, that's Prime West, and they're doing an 8-story, and it's pretty boxy the way I look at it. The neighbors just west of the alley on Jason and 42nd and 43rd, they're all industrial. And I believe that there is already plans involved in building higher density. Regarding affordable housing and economies of scale in building this, we chose to, well, the whole reason is we want to make it consistent whether MPI comes in or not, because there's a lot of variables, Trupti. There's the affordable housing component that we're going to throw in already. There's a potential additional affordable housing if we add 4 more stories that will give more density of affordable housing to the city, which is very desirable for everybody involved. The reason we wouldn't want to parse this into 2 or 3 different buildings is there's setbacks and you're going to lose units. And the economies of scale in building and construction is just not as affordable or cost effective as doing the entire half block together. And I think Rod and I had a discussion prior to this, and I appreciate you guys slotting me in, is we realize that this is a conceptual drawing and it's all laid out right now for this concept. But I truly believe that Inca and Jason and even Kalamath, if you look at Kalamath and 42nd, 43rd, there's a 3-story, 170 unit apartment going. So all of this area south of 43rd, south of the substation, it is going to want this type of rezoning.
So Trupti, same sort of thing though, looking for
I would.
neighborhood response.
Yep, I think we do the survey. I mean,
Yep.
obviously we've got a lot of, there's some question in the chat. We've got 3 things that we're going to be sending out, which, you know, a little bit of fatigue on that, but we should poll the neighborhood. That means we're, you know, checking our boxes of doing things consistently and asking for neighborhood input before we make a decision.
Yep. And I think that'll work great. And Billy, I'll go ahead and touch base with you next week and we'll start that process. And you know, like, I don't think it's going to be a tremendously long one. We'll put those surveys out there, make sure we get all the appropriate feedback. This question that's in the chat here about the ground level businesses, Billy and I chatted about last week when he first presented this to me. I have the floor plan brought up here. That was the main floor plan, which does show some commercial space in that southeast corner, but the rest of it is residential. And Billy had said that, you know, this, like he said, just mentioned just now, this is still conceptual. There is some flexibility there as to what would be commercial, like retail spaces versus apartments on that main floor. I believe that's what you talked about last time, Billy. I didn't want to
absolutely, Rod. And activating, speaking to the city, speaking to SUNY, speaking to, you know, Sandoval's office, activating 42nd and 43rd, and especially Inca is very important for community activation. And that's why we have those plazas. We are certainly more than amenable to throwing another activation of commercial retail space on that northeast corner of 43rd and Inca. And then there, I've worked with John at Host, and we want to show you something that is architecturally like pleasing and has the setbacks and reliefs that I think the neighborhood desires. Right.
I'm just going to go to the 3D.
Sure. And that activates the 42nd Inca and 43rd corridors. But it depends on how much affordable housing you want, because I look at this concept drawing and versus what I see in Prime West. And I love what Prime West is doing and what Zia has done. I want to support that type of curb appeal. But I believe with this relief and setback, we do have additional volume of density that we could add not only to the affordable housing supply.
So we'll go ahead and do the same process we talked about with the other two presenters tonight and get those survey items going and get this posted out on all the social media. And then we can catch up, Billy, over the next couple of weeks and start getting you the information we need to see where that letter of support falls in.
Absolutely. And Rod, if I could just leave with one more thought, and
Absolutely.
I think you and I brought this up. I think you actually brought it up, is yes, I do. Before I proceed with the formal, rezoning application, I would like to see SUNY's letter of support if they support it. But I think more importantly, during the whole rezoning application, there's a 14-day feedback, 2 weeks feedback of the neighborhood, and that's going to play a big impact on getting Amanda and the city council and even the mayor or the potential mayor to even sign off on this.
Yeah,
So this
well,
is
there's
just a
actually
first step.
two instances during the process. You need to post signs in the neighborhood
I
on the
think it's
property.
planning board and then city
And the
council.
planning board and the city council. Yeah.
Correct.
So, okay, well, we can, I want to be respectful because I know Melissa's hanging on there just to the end. And I apologize.
We are over.
So we're technically
Thanks,
over.
Melissa.
We got a lot in tonight. Thanks to everybody for hanging in there. And Melissa, like just whatever you've got, we can get to some of your other items later as well next month.
That's fine. There's
Thanks,
not
Billy.
a lot. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, thanks, Billy.
Thanks everyone for holding on.
Thank you all very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for your patience in putting me last on the agenda. I'm sorry I had a scheduling conflict. We don't have a lot to share at this point, but we wanted to, of course, congratulate you and us on the Sunnyside overlay passage that was unanimous. We had an article written about us. I won't say it was the greatest. There are some errors in it. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But we are very happy and proud of that. As I mentioned earlier, we are looking to rezone the rest of Sunnyside to the north and eastern parts for ADUs, to allow ADUs. And we will be hopefully sending out some surveys and starting our outreach process on that to see if there is an interest, if there's any concerns that people have. But as we speak about the ADUs, right now the ADU in Denver project is starting to come to a close. It's at its kind of end point here. That should go to council probably in the next month or so. They've made some good changes. They've kind of sectioned it out into urban edge and suburban. For urban, which is what Sunnyside is, there's some great changes in getting rid of 1.5 stories. No one knows what a half story is. It's caused a lot of confusion. So we're just making it 2 stories. They're going to, make it so that we aren't prioritizing parking anymore. It used to be that you'd want to build the biggest garage you could to put your ADU on top, have a 3-car garage to have the largest ADU. We won't be doing that anymore. It will have a building coverage exemption just like a garage does. There won't be a minimum lot size. We won't have to rezone properties that don't meet the minimum lot size for their area. If you are a unicorn in a USUC district and you have a small lot, we won't have to rezone you to an A or a B just so you can build an ADU. You can reuse existing garages. A lot of existing garages were built close to the property line and people were having to tear them down to build an ADU. So this allows us to reuse the existing garages and structures to put an ADU on top. They've increased the ADU sizes. So it used to be 650 square feet, and we're upping that to 864. We're also making it so that there isn't a maximum length for your structure. And importantly, you can put a ground level ADU in, which before was very challenging to do if you had a garage as well.
So a detached ground level?
Correct. There is one in, at least, I know of at least one and possibly 2 in Sunnyside already.
Great.
So the big thing that people were concerned with, the owner occupancy requirement. Currently, you must reside in the primary structure to rent out your ADU. There was discussion about that. There was not consensus among council members, and that issue has been dropped. So they will continue to require owner occupancy of these ADUs or of the primary structure for an ADU in single unit zone districts. So that's just a quick thing. I had given Rod a link to a little summary that can be had for anyone that's interested on some of the changes that are being proposed for ADUs in Denver. You know, if you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. You know, there's a whole slew of changes. That's just a couple of the ones I touched on, but we're very excited. We're hoping that it's going to increase the number of ADUs being built. The councilwoman is also hoping to look at in the future some of the fees and other things associated with ADUs, because first is the ability to build them, and second is some of the cost. And although we can't help the construction cost, we're looking to see if there's any other relief that can be had on the fees and requirements for ADUs.
Well, and just to, that link is here on the agenda. So if you go to the Google Drive, if anybody's interested, that link will take you to the main ADU page of Denver. And then if you scroll down, there is a click to the 2-page summary she's speaking of. And then there's also the larger report. If anybody has any questions, and we'll get that link also posted on any of our social media outlets as well, if people have questions. So thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your flexibility tonight.
Yep. And we're going to have more discussions. I think there's been some interest in actually having a larger section of one of these meetings dedicated to the ADU topic. So we'll be able to go more in depth. So with that in mind, if anybody has specific questions, they're welcome to send them to us, to either Trupti or I, and we could have those questions available then if we have a larger session where people can be involved that can answer those questions. So rather than waiting till the discussion, if we can preload it with some questions, that'd be nice to give people a chance to, you know, do some research and pre-respond. So, so that's really, thank you for being patient with me tonight and bouncing around here for all of it. That's what I had on the agenda for tonight. One final note, I am still doing the first and third Monday, sort of, I call them SUNY chats or whatever, over at Radiator from 4 to 6. It is their happy hour. You can buy beer and coffee. And I think it's 50% off some of that stuff. They've got specials. But I thought it would be nice if anybody's got anything they want to bring up at these meetings, talk more in depth about stuff that we discussed at these meetings, feel free to stop by. I'm there half the time. Trupti's been there. So, and there's been I usually get 2 or 3 people come by each Monday. So it's nice. It's a smaller group and we have a little bit more time to chat about things in depth. So feel free to stop by. First and third Mondays over at Radiator from 4 to 6.
And I have to say their happy hour, because I was just there today, included a shot and a half beer, which is one of those little pony, for $5. I don't know that there's a better deal in Sunnyside.
Wow.
Pictures on our social media already.
It's cool. So is there any other things anybody has that I missed? And if not, I'll go ahead and call for adjournment of the meeting. Do we? Anything? Well, thanks again for being patient. We got a lot done tonight.
I'll be
Thank
posting
you.
this.
Good, thank you, Rod. Thanks, Trupti.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Trupti.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a nice
Bye.
evening,
Have a
everyone.
good night.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Thanks, Trupti.
Yeah, you too. I'll post this tomorrow.
Okay, cool. And I'll touch base with you about putting the surveys and that sort of
Yeah, we
stuff.
got 3 of them. That should be fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Perfect. Bye. Thank you.